It's really figuring out where a customer's journey's at.
I don't think any AI solution kind of fits in a box for any organization now.
An often overlooked part of this whole AI journey is modernizing the existing infrastructure.
Hello and welcome to Cisco SE Talks, where we put our AI partners in a hot seat. My name is Zain Mirza. I am your host, and I'm really excited for this episode because in our studio today, I'm joined by Presidio. Aaron, Michael, and Gilbert are here in our Chicago office joining us. And so we'll kind of just get into it and maybe just go around the table with quick intros. So I would love to hear from you all. So Aaron, if you could start with a quick intro and really pass the ball to Michael and Gilbert. So Aaron, over to you.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Aaron Kirpaul. I've been with Presidio 8 years. I'm a consulting solution architect with a new focus on AI. Michael?
Yeah, Michael Byrne, VP of Solution Architecture for Central with Presidio, and excited to be here. Gilbert.
Hey, good day, everybody. Gilbert Rivera, Modern Platforms SA Manager, focusing on data center and cloud. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here today and joining us. And I will say, Presidio is near and dear to my heart. As a side note, a lot of our communications, especially from an SE perspective, is with Gilbert, you and your team. So I'm excited for this conversation today for sure.
Should be a good time.
Yeah, so as I kind of just jump in, right, and I guess I'll start with an easy one here, is how are you guys today using AI internally at Presidio? And what are you kind of seeing from your customer base? Because as we know, AI, I personally use it for many things, both professionally and personally. But would love to hear from you. What at Presidio are you guys using it for?
Yeah, here at Presidio, we have a variety of things we're using it for. Pretty much the whole sales organization has been licensed for Copilot by Microsoft, and that is connected with our internal system. Actually, right before this, when I needed my background, I used Copilot to find where the corporate list of backgrounds was. Personally, I use ChatGPT quite a bit. I've also experimented with Gemini, using them back and forth for various things. I'm actually getting married next month, and I actually have used ChatGPT to help us plan our wedding timeline, different things like that. So, and then, the big new thing with Presidio is we have something called Presidio Path that was just announced, and that is actually a Cisco AI pod along with a bunch of other software on top of that by Presidio, which is going to be our new demo center AI pod for demos, integrations, and then we've actually worked with a bunch of other hyperscalers and other partners to be able to extend into there to show cloud mobility and different things.
Great, that's really exciting, and I'm glad you mentioned AI Pod. And for the audience, we'll kind of go deeper into what that is as a turnkey sort of solution. But again, I don't want to spoil it for the rest. And as we kind of just look at challenges with AI, obviously when we talk to different organizations, there's the good and there's some of the challenges that you kind of see. How are you guys? I would love to get your feedback here. Is like, how are you guys preparing for this journey? Because it's still new to a lot, and we see customers making this transition, but it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah, so we have an R&D team for AI. It really started in our DevOps group as an SDLC accelerator, truthfully, and that's where it's kind of focused, but it's kind of evolved. It started out as, we call it high human AI because, and now it's kind of becoming Presidio's brand, right? Because AI will never replace anything fully, right? Humans will always be involved is how we look at it right now. So it's an accelerator and enablement method tool. So that's how we're kind of approaching it. And we're really around the, governance, safety, but then accelerating different things, whether it's video, whether it's accelerating, various different offerings in the SDLC process of, bringing products to market quicker, a whole variety of things. So, yeah.
And Zain, I would add to that a little bit. We've recently reorganized our digital practice, right, to be more vertically focused, to be able to really be able to envision better with our clients, how they can bring AI to value for them, right? AI is interesting in that clearly there's there's very heavy IT components to AI, but there's also very heavy workload and vertical based value. So how do we go create better relationships with line of business owners? How do we go hire individuals with vertical expertise? And ultimately, to Aaron's point, how do we build products built around AI that provide real value to our clients?
And I'll-
Yeah, Michael, I love that you said that because I just, that's a good segue in switching gears for a moment. One of the things that we often see at Cisco is like there's this horizontal approach to AI opposed to a vertical approach. Something you, Michael, just kind of hit on, specifically with infrastructure optimization, right? So talk to us about what you're seeing with many of your customers, because oftentimes AI, it's not just about the product. That's it's less about product, it's more about use case. So just comparing the horizontal approach versus the vertical approach, what are you guys kind of seeing?
So it's a variety of things. Really, I don't think any AI solution kind of fits in a box for any organization now, because what organizations are trying to solve from across horizontally with, across industries or vertically across one industry, every company has a little different of a problem, and solving those problems with AI is now the new thing to be done. Does a lot of the things that are being done across verticals apply to other, non-verticals? Yes, some. And that's where Presidio has kind of grouped those verticals together to try to solve those problems. Gilbert, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. So, when we talk to our customers, we see them at many different levels. We've talked to some customers that are very advanced in their journey, some that are just beginning. I think the best thing that we have seen is starting our entire conversation around what do they see in the next 2 years as a business, and how do they think AI is going to impact that? And that's changing the trajectory of our overall messaging, because that can open many windows into other areas that we, Presidio, as a company, can help them out, whether it be, product solution services, advisory, consulting. It's done a good job for us at really just pushing that door open and talking to different business leaders within our customer segment.
And Zane, I think you bring up a great point, which is the use cases are vertical, but in a lot of cases, the underlying infrastructure today is horizontal, right? So a big challenge for clients is figuring out, you want to go pursue this use case, but where does all the data sit, right? What does the data federation look like? Do you have the network connectivity you need? Is it edge versus in a data center versus cloud, right? So there's a lot of different discussions that need to happen around the horizontal aspects to enable the vertical.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, Michael. And sometimes the vertical, you just don't know even where to begin. That kind of goes into my next question, right? And just talking about customer pain points. And it's near and dear to my heart because I cover a lot of customers across, manufacturing, retail. And if we step back for just a moment, we see specific initiatives where, CIOs, executives, they want to embark on this journey to AI. And I kind of think of it cloud at times because it's very similar in that perspective, is you just don't know where to begin, right? But the challenge is they don't have the internal skill set, right? What are you guys hearing from your customers, and how can Presidio help with that, partner with Cisco together? Because a lot of times it's not about the destination, it's the journey and really arming the team to get there.
Honestly, Cisco has a complete portfolio, right? They cover the networking, they cover, the AI compute, they cover the GPUs. So you do enable us to give a one manufacturer story for, 75 to 90% of a solution stack for them. So that does make life a lot easier in that regard. But what Presidio has done is we have created accelerators across different product sets that we kind of layer on top of your guys' AI pod to make offerings for that. We call it our private AI offering, right? But what we've done is we've looked at it shouldn't matter where it lives, right? Whether it lives on-prem, lives in the cloud, customers want flexibility, right? Like when they're first stepping into AI, most likely they're not going to buy much hardware on-prem, right? They're going to look at the cloud and deploying stuff there, testing stuff up, deploying stuff, ripping it down, deploying stuff again, figuring out the use case and what they want. And that's where Presidio can help with that. But then when they're done with that, that cloud cost, as we all know, is very expensive to continue running, especially with an AI solution. It's not like it's a VDI solution where you're going to turn it on and turn it back off, right? AI is going to run constantly, especially because it's going to be customer facing. It's going to be integrated into their product. So it's going to be running 24/7. And that's where Cisco's AI pod on-prem solves that solution for us. And then, our expertise is how do we do some stuff in the cloud, do some stuff on-prem, or mirror them together so that we get the best experience for the customer.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And for the audience, AI pods, what they do is they offer compute, network storage, and platform storage, and sort of that's wrapped into one turnkey solution. So I'm curious because you kind of went, Aaron, where I wanted to go is how are you using it internally, right? And what are you using with customers? And what are the constraints that you're addressing, right? Because it's all about not only the infrastructure, because you're bringing cloud back home, but what constraints are you kind of solving and driving your own services as part of that offering, right? So I'm curious to see. I know that when we talk, Gilbert, it's something that you guys are really excited about.
Yeah.
I really want to hear about what are what's the good there, and how are you guys kind of implementing it internally?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll start it off, and then Aaron, I'll pass it over to you. So when you think about just our path offering that we're implementing, it's really figuring out where our customer's journey's at and thinking about it from not only a technical perspective, but from a business perspective, right? They may have their own DevOps teams, they may have their own pipelines, and then we sometimes have to shift to the time to value and time to market. Maybe it takes some X amount of time to modernize some type of application, and we got to really dig tactically to figure out what we could do to limit that time and show them in real time how we could do that with our own, modernized agents that we have within Presidio. So we look at it from a business perspective as well as where I'm trying to get at. Aaron, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but that's kind of some of the things we've been seeing here.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, Zane, you kind of talked about is, they don't know what they need. And I take that as kind of a scale thing, right? So the one thing that we've really focused on is how can we start a customer on this journey starting small, right? Whether it's a single GPU on-prem, whether it's a small, cloud deployment, that's really where we've focused on, where yes, there are organizations that are buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of AI pods and GPUs and everything, but that's not the everyday customer, right? The everyday customer is like, hey, I have this random use case. I want to see if AI can help with it. This may be our first step in. We have to set up governance. We have to set up the process, everything of how we're going to do this. How do we do that? And that goal is starting small. So looking at one of your guys's, single servers with a single GPU or two, and then that's where our expertise comes in, because we are a networking company at heart, was where, Presidio was founded as, and that so we can look at their existing network and everything, and can they support it? Or are there changes that have to be done? Where do they need to optimize so that it works correctly in their environment and fit that little small, Lego block essentially into their environment, and then but set it up so that that can grow over time. So you're not just wasting that asset.
And Zane, I would add, I think an often overlooked part of this whole AI journey is modernizing the existing infrastructure, right? That for so many of our clients is about how do they reduce technical debt. You mentioned skill sets and things like that earlier. How do we consolidate the vendors that they have? How do we make it easier for them to deploy the infrastructure on-prem and manage it and do the level of orchestration they need, right? Like one of the big constraints today, especially for on-prem data center, is space and weight and cooling and power. If we can help modernize the existing infrastructure, we now start to free up cycles across all those areas to help now innovate and go create AI solutions. The other thing I would add, Aaron mentioned human AI earlier, right? Our HI solution. And HI is really about how do we enable our clients to be more productive, right? How do we utilize technology to help them modernize existing applications, do it faster, right? From a matter of months to weeks? How do we actually help them build new applications faster? And very quickly, you're going to start seeing Hive for like modern infrastructure and things like that. How do we help clients assess the current state of their infrastructure and give them a plan for how to modernize?
Yeah, Michael, that's great. And I think bringing it back home for a second, it's one of those key aspects where you're seeing, the initial stage of AI, right? How is that? How is it evolving? How is it modernizing? How is security living on top of all this? And all that, bringing that together. So thank you for bringing that up, and really shedding some light. And I think, one of the other questions that I sort of think about is, businesses sometimes they want to jump on this bandwagon to AI, right? Seeing it as cloud as the easy button, if you will, right? It promises scale, flexibility, and just a simplified path to innovation. But a surprising trend that I kind of see is that companies are pulling their AI workloads back from the cloud just because of cost, right? Where do you guys see what's driving this reverse migration? Because I'm seeing it definitely, and I'm sure a lot of your customers are, but what's driving this?
I could go first on this one if you don't mind. So, speaking to a customer not too long ago, one of the things we realized was the data sovereignty conversation. When they thought about AI, they know this is an initiative they wanted to run. We took it to the next level and said, okay, let's now have a data conversation. Where is your data? Can we, concatenate this and put this together so you could grab from it and create, whether it's your internal chatbot or any other kind of AI agent that you're looking for. We come to find out from the customer that in itself was its own challenge, and we were able to help support them and make sure it's all consolidated, it's secure, right? It's in one location, it's redundant, it's available, all the things you would expect from a data resiliency perspective in order for us to proceed forward. So as we begin and open up this AI conversation, obviously, as you're creating your own models, you're grabbing your own data. That's a conversation amongst itself. We realized right away, and we were able to help. So I don't know, Aaron, if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, I think the reason why people are bringing AI back on-prem is the cloud model works best because it's scalable. You can scale up, you can scale down on that. AI models aren't scaling up and scaling down. That's the thing. Yes, with agentic being more prevalent now and using different models for the specific workloads, but the things are going to be running all the time. And that's not what the cloud was ever intended for. Yes, there's plenty of organizations that move static workloads up there and they run 24/7 in that, but that's probably another business decision. It's not a cost-saving measure. And now with these AI workloads and the cost of running them in the cloud, we're seeing that the on-prem footprint is very comparable, if not cheaper, than the cloud.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think that, obviously cost is a big component of it. Companies are realizing what that cost really looks like. And then security. We talk about security all the time. How is that built within your AI infrastructure? LLMs, we all love them, but I will tell you that each agent, each prompt that you ask is not always the same, right? So that's how we kind of deal with that as well, because with the cloud, that's a big takeaway. Is like how am I securing some of those LLMs as well?
And Zane, we're certainly seeing that larger, more complex models produce better results. So the challenge there is as those continue to grow, compute resources are continuing to grow along with it. So it's not even like it's going to reach a steady state, that the effectiveness continues to grow. And to your point about tokenization, in a lot of cases now, the token databases could be 3 to 5x even larger than the original data set. So we're seeing massive growth of data, continued growth of compute. That's not a good recipe for a cloud model. At the end of the day, building that on premises becomes far more cost effective. The key is, can we deploy it in a supportable, easy to manage, cloud-like model on-prem?
Yep. Thank you, Michael. That's 100%. And I think that's the evolution that we're seeing, right? And it's the pace of change is it's enormous, and it's magnified a lot. But that's what you're talking about. Like, organizations are realizing some of the risks, right? With doing things on cloud and really bringing it back on-prem. So really appreciate your insight there. So Aaron, we're gonna switch gears again, and I wanted to kind of bring up this game that we play. It's called Two AI Facts and One AI Hot Take, right? So I'm gonna ask you to give me 3 statements, right? No judging, And by the way, to the team here, we did not prep this, so this is on the fly. And I am gonna actually guess, what's a hot take and what's a fact, right? So, Aaron, the floor is yours. I'm excited, but a little nervous at the same time.
Yeah. So I guess the first one I would say is most of the cutting edge AI models are set up to process images, text, audio, all within the same system. They're no longer separate. My next fact or hot take, depending on what your thought is within the next 5 years, companies aren't going to be bragging about how advanced the AI model is anymore. They're going to be competing about how responsible and efficient it is, rather than how advanced they are. And then the next AI factor hot take would be if all GPUs that are planned to be produced were produced right now, there's literally not enough power in the world to run them.
So I'm gonna go with the first two being a fact, just because the amount of prompt injection attacks that we're seeing, for me, a lot of, it's more of a personal preference, but gifts, some of that stuff that you do with AI, how do I secure it and how does that sort of work? So I'm gonna take a guess here and say the first two are facts, and the last one is a hot take. But it is interesting the amount of change and just the steadiness of the GPUs and how the consumption is only increasing, right, over time. So that would be a guess, but I would love to hear your response here.
So technically, the first and third are the facts, and the second one was the hot take. But I could easily agree that the third one would be a hot take, because when I first heard it, it surprised me greatly. But when you actually look into it, I mean, it's a raw math number, and we just don't have enough power to power everything if we wanted to right now. Because especially with power for AI, it's just not powering the GPUs. It's more power to cool them. Right. So it's a compounding issue.
Yeah, and then to your point, right? We talked about this, Michael and Gilbert as well. Where do you have the team to be able to have that skill set to drive some of these power needs? Right? You may have the hardware, but is the team ready to do it? And how do you equip them? It kind of goes back to Presidio's differentiator and their services that they offer. Partnering with us here at Cisco. And sort of bring that all together. So I think that it kind of goes full circle from that perspective.
Yeah, the physical aspects of the data center are going to be absolutely key, right? The ability to be able to assess where clients are today in terms of power, cooling, right? Rack sizes, weight's another big one, right? We run into with flooring and things like that. So the ability to quickly assess that and understand what costs are to update that on-prem, compare that to a public cloud model or a colo model is really where we're going to get into, I think. Where does it make sense to start to run these workloads? I do think, though, it won't be too awful long, right? This would be my hot take that may become a fact, is that I think within a few months, certainly within a year to 18 months, we'll be talking about these AI models in terms of hybrid. Right, there'll be a cloud component, there'll be an on-prem component, there'll be an edge component, right? There'll be stuff in the colos, and we'll be communicating between all of those.
Yep, I love that, and that's seeming more and more like a reality if you kind of just look at it, right? And how fast things are sort of changing. So, as we kind of go into our last question, I wanted to first and foremost, again, thank you all for the time today. But Aaron, just going to you real quick is. I understand at Presidio, you work with a lot of OEMs in the space, right? So I just want your honest and the reality, right, for the audiences. How do you think Cisco stacks up in the stacking to really provide that complete AI solution?
Yeah, I think it does a very, very good job at that. And I probably can't put into words how well it does, because you guys cover the whole breadth of the solution, right? So you have the networking, you have the compute, you have the underlying storage, depending on how the customer wants to do it, right? So you check all the boxes, and then as you guys have evolved, you guys are coming out with software solutions to enable those even more, and make it easier to manage and that stuff. And that's where, other than a couple, there are not many manufacturers out there that offer the whole solution as a bundle, right? Like, or have reference architectures for it. A lot of them will piecemeal with other manufacturers, and you got to partner with 2 or 3 partners to really make a solution, whereas I can just go to Cisco and get the whole stack directly from you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate that. It's that AI ready, right? It's that turnkey solution. And so, Cisco is really transforming. I think not only is it just a networking company, we're talking about being a software company, being an AI security driven company. So it's really exciting, and especially working with partners like yourself, right? And by the way, team, I did lie. I have one last question. So Mike, I'm gonna go to you and Gilbert, where you're talking to a large amount of SEs for today, a large amount of partner SEs. And so I would love your key takeaway out of this conversation, because we hit on a lot, right? We talked about security, skill set, compute, power. We hit it all. Power with that AI ready data center, AI pods, you name it, we hit it. So I would love to hear your key takeaway. What do you want us to remember out of this conversation?
I'll go first, and then Mike, I'll pass it over to you. I think for us, from an enablement perspective, we have to lean in. We have to be passionate about, Cisco's messaging, whether it be around Cisco AI, what's going on in the NVIDIA front, and how those two worlds are really making something happen on-prem. We cannot wait, right? The time is now, right? Put your head into a book, start learning it. That's a charter that we have for the Modern Platforms team here at Presidio, and they're all in. We got good curriculums coming up for them, not only Presidio Human AI led, but with Cisco as well. So I think the enablement aspect, it's going to keep us on the forefront, so we can make sure we are, with our customers, and when they're finding out new developments and learning, we're doing the same thing. I don't know, Mike, if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, like one of my favorite sayings is, with change comes opportunity, right? And I think we've got such a tremendous opportunity in front of us right now as Presidio and Cisco. And like, to me, this is the biggest technological change to happen in our industry in 30 years, right? Like, I think back to VMware virtualization and those sorts of things. I think this is the next big turn of the crank. And I think it's an opportunity for all of us, our SAs, all of us as leaders, to truly lean in. The really exciting part to me is I think it transforms the relationship with our end user clients. And that all of a sudden now we get an opportunity to sit shoulder to shoulder with the line of business owners and understand what moves their business, and truly start to provide solutions that help move them forward, right? And I think, like, from a Cisco perspective, it's especially exciting because Cisco is by far our number one partner, right? As Aaron mentioned, we started from a networking background and have continued to build on that Cisco relationship. And I to your point, I was at Cisco Live. AI permeated the entire 3-day event. I look at things like Canvas, right, and get super, super excited. I think security in general, to your point, AI is going to drive security discussions that we've been struggling to have. So I think overall it's a tremendous opportunity. We're incredibly excited to be a part of it, to be able to partner with Cisco, to be able to drive AI solutions across our entire user base.
Awesome. Thank you again, team. I really appreciate it. I know I am excited and I'm thrilled, and this is just an insightful conversation, again, with you guys and partnering with you all. So again, thank you for your time. And team, I hope you join us for the next session. Again, I am your host, Zain Mirza, and looking forward to keep that AI conversation going. But thank you for your time.